It started as just a simple massage. My back ached after a long day, and when he offered, I thought it was nothing more than a friendly gesture. But the way his hands lingered, the warmth of his touch, and the silence of the room told a different story. In that dark space, every stroke carried a secret, every pause felt like forbidden desire. That night, under his hands, I realized this wasn't just relief, it was the beginning of something I could never forget. The evening had been dragging on forever, the kind of night where the walls of the small apartment seemed to press closer with every tick of the clock. The soft hum of the fridge in the kitchen was the only sound filling the silence. I lay slouched across the worn couch, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, trying to distract myself from the dull ache running across my shoulders. It wasn't anything new, my job left me drained, my muscles tight, and my posture hunched. By the time I got home, I was usually too exhausted to do much of anything except collapse. Tonight was no different. I must have sighed one too many times, because from across the room, Liam glanced up from his sketchbook. "You sound like an old man," he teased, his lips quirking into that half-smile I'd come to recognize so well. I shot him a glare, though it lacked any real bite. "I feel like an old man. My back's killing me." He closed the sketchbook, setting it down on the table beside him. "All that sitting hunched over your desk. I've told you 100 times, you need to stretch." Yeah, I muttered, rolling my shoulders, wincing at the sharp pull of tension. Liam tilted his head, studying me with those curious gray eyes. His hair was messy, falling into his face, and he absently pushed it back with ink-stained fingers. There was always something artistic about him, even in the smallest movements. "Come here," he said suddenly. I blinked. "What?" He patted the space in front of him on the rug. "I'll fix your back. You clearly need it." I raised an eyebrow, suspicious. "You? Since when are you a chiropractor?" He rolled his eyes, smirking. "Not a chiropractor. I know a few massage techniques. My mom had this old book about it. Trust me, it helps." I hesitated, searching his expression for a trace of a joke. But his tone was casual, easy, as if it was no big deal. Still, something about the offer tugged at me. Maybe it was the thought of relief, or maybe it was the way he said it, with a quiet certainty that made it hard to say no. "Fine," I muttered, pushing myself up with a groan. "But if you snap my spine, I'm haunting you." Liam chuckled, patting the spot again. "Deal. Now sit." I lowered myself to the rug, facing away from him, my back exposed. The room seemed to grow quieter, the air thicker, as I waited. For a second, nothing happened, and I almost turned to say something sarcastic, but then his hands landed on my shoulders. The first touch was startling, firm but careful, his palms warm against the tense muscles. I sucked in a sharp breath, my body stiffening instinctively. "Relax," he murmured, his voice low, close to my ear. "You're like a block of wood." Easier said than done. Every nerve in my body seemed hyper-aware of his hands, of the way his thumbs pressed gently into the knots in my shoulders. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to exhale slowly. He started working in slow circles, kneading carefully. The ache in my back flared at first, then slowly began to ease beneath his touch. The rhythm of his movements was steady, almost hypnotic. "You weren't kidding," I muttered, trying to keep my voice even. "You actually know what you're doing." "Told you," he said softly. I could hear the faint smile in his tone. Minutes passed like that, his hands moving across my shoulders, down my back, pressing into places I didn't even realize were sore. Every touch was deliberate, confident yet gentle. The tension began to melt, leaving behind something else, something I couldn't quite name. The room was dim, the only light coming from a small lamp in the corner. Shadows stretched across the walls, making everything feel closer, more intimate. My breathing slowed, syncing with the steady rhythm of his hands. "Better?" he asked quietly, his thumbs pressing just beneath my shoulder blades. "Yeah," I admitted, my voice almost a whisper. "A lot better." There was a pause, then he chuckled softly. "You sound surprised." "Maybe I am," I said, my lips curving slightly. His fingers lingered for a moment longer, then slid lower, tracing along my spine. I shivered, though the room wasn't cold. He must have felt it, because his hand stilled. "Too much?" he asked, his tone cautious now. I shook my head quickly. "No. Just sensitive, I guess." He hummed thoughtfully, then continued, slower this time, as if testing boundaries. The silence stretched again, but it wasn't empty. It was charged, thick with something unsaid. I could feel it pressing in on us, as real as the warmth of his hands. I opened my eyes, staring at the shadows on the floor. Why does this feel different? I thought. It was just a massage, just a friend helping another friend. But it didn't feel that simple anymore. Every press of his fingers sent ripples through me that had nothing to do with muscle relief. My heart thudded harder, and I found myself holding my breath, waiting, wondering. Liam's hand slowed again, resting lightly on my back. His voice was softer now, almost uncertain. You okay? I nodded, though my throat felt tight. Yeah. Just, feels good. His fingers curled slightly, as if resisting the urge to move further. I could sense his hesitation, his restraint. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't the only one feeling the shift. There was something in the air between us, unspoken, fragile, but undeniable. I turned my head slightly, enough to catch a glimpse of him from the corner of my eye. His face was half hidden in shadow, but his expression was focused, his lips pressed together, his eyes darker than usual. For the first time, I saw Liam not just as my friend or roommate, but as someone else entirely. Someone whose touch lingered, whose presence filled the room, whose silence said more than words ever could. My chest tightened, a mix of fear and longing swirling inside me. Because if I acknowledged what I felt in that moment, there would be no going back. And deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted to go back at all. The rest of the evening stretched quietly, though it didn't feel quiet at all. Not in the way it used to. Something about the air had changed, charged, heavier. My body still carried the memory of his hands, the lingering warmth where he had pressed, kneaded, and coaxed the tension out of me. Except now, there was a new kind of tension, deeper, one that his massage had only uncovered rather than erased. When Liam finally pulled back, his voice was soft. That should help for now. I forced myself to exhale, nodding as if everything were normal. Yeah, it did. But my voice betrayed me. It cracked slightly, caught somewhere between gratitude and confusion. He gave me a small smile, one that seemed hesitant, as though he wasn't sure if he had crossed a line. You're tense about more than your back, he murmured, half teasing, half probing. I laughed awkwardly, though it came out more like a sigh. Maybe. We didn't push the conversation further. Instead, I shifted back to the couch, grabbing a throw blanket and wrapping it around myself, though the room wasn't cold. Liam stayed where he was, sitting cross-legged on the rug, staring at his hands as though they'd just betrayed him. The clock ticked softly on the wall, filling the silence. Finally, I broke it. You're good at that. The massage thing. You should charge money. He chuckled, shaking his head. Right. Put up a sign outside, student by day, masseur by night. The mental image made me smile, but it didn't erase the pull between us. My shoulders might have been looser, but inside, I was tighter than ever. We drifted into small talk after that, school, random stories, memories that filled the space but didn't touch the real subject. Yet every time his gaze flicked to mine, it lingered a little too long. Every time our arms brushed when we shifted, my breath caught. By the time the clock nudged past midnight, the apartment was wrapped in stillness. Liam stretched, yawning, his shirt lifting slightly to expose a sliver of his toned stomach. I looked away too fast, heart thudding. Bed? He asked, rubbing his eyes. Yeah, I muttered, standing with him. We moved to the shared bedroom, the single lamp casting everything in muted gold. The room was small, 2 twin beds with barely a nightstand between them. We'd always joked about how cramped it was, but tonight, the closeness felt amplified. I slid under my blanket, trying to steady my thoughts. Liam did the same, though I could feel his presence, the way the air shifted when he moved. Hey, he said softly in the dark. Yeah? Did it help? The massage? I turned my head toward him, though I couldn't see his face in the shadows. Yeah, it really did. I paused, then added, thanks. A beat of silence. Then he murmured, anytime. The word lingered in the air, heavier than it should have been. I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come. My body buzzed, my mind replaying every touch of his hands, the way he had leaned closer, the way his breath had brushed my ear when he told me to relax. It wasn't just about the massage anymore. It was about what it uncovered, what had been there, quietly waiting. I rolled over, staring at the faint outline of his figure across the room. He was on his side, facing me. I could feel his eyes on me, even in the dark. Can't sleep? I whispered. He exhaled a soft laugh. Not really. The silence returned, but now it was shared. Not empty, not lonely. I don't know what made me say it, maybe the late hour, maybe the fact that the dark gave me courage. You're really good with your hands. Even in the shadows, I saw his body shift, as though my words had struck him. His voice was low, careful. You noticed. Heat crept up my neck. Hard not to. He didn't respond right away, and in that pause, my heart thundered. Then he said, softly, I could do it again. If you want. My throat went dry. Now? Only if you need it, he murmured, his tone loaded with something more. I hesitated, torn between common sense and the pull inside me. But eventually, I pushed back the blanket and whispered, okay. The floor was cool under my bare feet as I crossed the small gap between our beds. Liam sat up, his hair falling into his eyes, his gaze following me. I lowered myself in front of him again, my back exposed, my heart pounding. His hands found my shoulders, warm and steady, and the air shifted instantly. It wasn't like before. The first time had been tentative, cautious. Now, there was no mistaking the weight in his touch. His thumbs pressed firmly, sliding slowly down my spine. My breath hitched. "You're still tense," he whispered. "Maybe," I breathed back. His fingers traced lower, lingering longer than before, brushing the edge of places they hadn't touched earlier. My body tensed, then relaxed, caught between surrender and restraint. The lamp on the nightstand flickered faintly, throwing moving shadows across the walls. The room seemed smaller, the silence louder. His touch was no longer just practical, it was deliberate, almost searching. "Better?" he asked, though his voice carried something else beneath it. I swallowed hard. Yeah, better. But it wasn't about better anymore. It was about different. I could feel him leaning closer, his breath grazing the back of my neck. My skin tingled under his hands, my pulse racing. And in that fragile, dangerous moment, I knew we were standing on the edge of something. Something we couldn't step back from once we crossed it. I don't think I'll ever forget that silence. The kind that isn't empty at all, but brimming with everything unsaid. The only sounds in that dimly lit room were our breaths, his steady, mine uneven. And under his touch, my body wasn't just relaxing. It was responding. Liam's fingers traced along my shoulder blades, thumbs pressing deliberately down the column of my spine. Each slow circle, each shift of pressure, felt charged. It wasn't like before, when his hands worked with the casual focus of a friend helping another friend. No, this was something else entirely. His hands lingered too long. Drifted too low. Paused just long enough to make me wonder if he was waiting, for me to stop him. For me to pull away. But I didn't. I leaned into it instead. A soft exhale slipped from me, barely audible, but enough that I saw him hesitate. His hands froze in place. "Sorry," he whispered, his voice thick in the low light. "Was that too much?" I shook my head quickly. "No. Not too much." He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing as if he were holding back words. Then, slowly, cautiously, he pressed forward again. This time his touch was even slower, deliberate in a way that made my pulse race. My body was a battlefield, half of me tense with fear, the other half surrendering completely. The room seemed smaller now, the shadows heavier. The lamp cast faint gold across his face, and I caught the look in his eyes, concentration, yes, but also hesitation. And beneath that, something rawer. Something that mirrored what was growing inside me. "You're warm," he murmured without thinking. The words struck me harder than they should have. My breath caught. "So are you," I managed to say. A beat of silence. Then his hands shifted again, sliding up to cup my shoulders. His thumbs brushed against the base of my neck, where my skin was most sensitive. A shiver ran down my spine, impossible to hide. His lips parted, like he wanted to speak, but no sound came. Instead, his touch became lighter, almost trembling, as if he were testing a boundary neither of us had ever dared to name. "You can tell me to stop," he whispered. I should have. Every reasonable part of me screamed it was the right thing. But reason didn't belong in that room anymore. "I don't want you to stop," I said, voice low, almost broken. That admission cracked something open between us. His hands stilled, but only for a second. Then, slowly, they slid forward, across my chest, drawing me back slightly against him. The contact was electric, sudden, intimate, impossible to mistake for anything other than what it was. I felt his breath at my ear, closer now, closer than it had ever been. "I shouldn't," he started. "I know," I interrupted softly. "Me neither." But neither of us pulled away. For a long moment, we stayed like that, his hands on me, my body leaning into his, both of us suspended in the impossible weight of our choices. Finally, he whispered, almost desperate, "Do you want this?" I turned my head slightly, just enough that the lamplight caught his eyes. They weren't confident, not in the slightest. They were searching, pleading, for reassurance, for permission. "Yes," I said, firmer than I expected. That was all it took. His touch shifted instantly, no longer hesitant, no longer careful in the way it had been before. Now it was deliberate, certain, though still trembling at the edges. His hand slid lower, his chest brushing against my back as he leaned in closer. The air grew heavy, our breaths quickening in unison. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Every inch of me was alive, my skin hypersensitive, my nerves lit up like fire. I wasn't just being touched, I was being seen. And it terrified me as much as it thrilled me. "Liam," I whispered, his name breaking in my throat. He froze again, like he thought I'd changed my mind. "Too much?" I turned, shaking my head. "No. Just, don't stop." The tension in his face melted, replaced by something softer, something that made my chest ache. He smiled faintly, barely visible in the dim light, and whispered, "Okay." Then his forehead touched mine, tentative but undeniable. The smallest contact, yet it sent shockwaves through me. I didn't breathe. Neither did he. And in that moment, in that dark little room, with the lamp casting shadows that would never tell our secret, I knew everything was about to change. But just as the silence brimmed with new meaning, the weight of reality slammed back in. The creak of the old house. The memory of walls too thin. The world outside that would never understand. We both heard it, the unspoken truth. This wasn't simple. This wasn't safe. His hands pulled back slowly, reluctantly, though not completely. My skin screamed at the absence, my heart aching for what had almost been. "We should sleep," he said finally, though his voice was rough, unconvincing. "Yeah," I whispered, though neither of us moved right away. When he finally slid back into his bed, I lay down in mine, staring at the ceiling, my chest burning. Sleep didn't come. Only the memory of his touch. Only the echo of what almost happened, and the unbearable weight of knowing I wanted more. The morning after felt unreal. I woke up to the faint smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen, the pale light of dawn spilling through the cabin window. For a moment, I thought maybe it had all been a dream, that the massage, the touch, the closeness, had only been my imagination running wild in the silence of night. But then I shifted in bed and felt it, the ghost of his hands on my skin. And I knew it had been real. Too real. I sat up, my heart pounding harder than it should for something as ordinary as waking up. The cabin looked the same as always, messy stacks of books on the table, an extra jacket slung over a chair, boots by the door. Ordinary. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. When I walked into the kitchen, Liam was standing at the counter, his back to me, pouring coffee into 2 chipped mugs. He wore the same gray t-shirt he'd slept in, rumpled and soft, clinging slightly to his shoulders. My chest tightened just looking at him. He turned when he heard me, and for a second, our eyes met. His expression was unreadable, calm, maybe even casual, but there was something beneath it, something guarded. "Morning," he said, sliding one of the mugs across the table toward me. "Morning," I replied, my voice catching more than it should have. We sat across from each other in silence. I stared into my coffee, pretending to be fascinated by the steam curling upward, but all I could think about was the weight of his hands on me, his forehead brushing mine, the way his voice had broken when he whispered, "Do you want this?" The silence stretched, uncomfortable and heavy. Finally, he cleared his throat. "About last night?" My stomach dropped. The words I dreaded were here. He paused, as if searching for the right phrasing. His fingers tapped against the side of his mug nervously. Maybe we should forget it happened. It was late, we were both tired, things can get confusing. Forget it? The words stung sharper than I expected. I forced a smile I didn't feel. Right. Confusing. Sure. But inside, I was crumbling. Because it hadn't been confusing. Not for me. Every second of it had been clearer than anything in my life. The way my body had responded to his touch, the way my heart had pounded when his forehead touched mine, that wasn't confusion. That was truth. He looked relieved, though, mistaking my agreement as genuine. "Yeah. Good. I just don't want things to be weird between us, you know." Too late, I thought bitterly. Things were already weird. Weird in a way that made my chest ache and my skin burn with memory. The rest of the day passed in fragments. We chopped wood, cooked lunch, went for a hike, just like we always did. But every glance between us carried the weight of what wasn't being said. His laughter sounded forced, my smiles hollow. At one point, while we were stacking logs, our hands brushed. Just a quick, accidental touch. But the jolt of electricity that shot through me was undeniable. He froze, eyes flicking to mine, wide for a second before he quickly looked away. If he wanted me to believe it had all been nothing, he wasn't doing a very good job. By evening, I was exhausted, not from the work, but from holding myself together. From pretending. From the constant battle between what I wanted and what I was allowed to show. When night came again, the weight of it pressed down on me. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling like the night before, every nerve on edge, waiting for something. But nothing happened. No touch. No whisper. No stolen closeness in the dim light. Just silence. I turned over, frustrated, catching a glimpse of him in the other bed. He lay on his back, eyes closed, but I could tell from the way his chest rose and fell that he wasn't sleeping either. The air between us was thick with all the words we weren't saying. Finally, I whispered, "Liam." His eyes opened instantly, meeting mine in the dark. "Yeah?" The question I wanted to ask burned on my tongue. "Do you regret it? Did you feel what I felt? Do you really want to forget?" But all I managed was, "Never mind. Good night." He hesitated, then whispered back, "Good night." I rolled onto my side, facing away, my chest tight. Sleep never came. Only the ache of wanting what I couldn't have. The next morning, the distance was worse. He avoided my gaze more than usual, his words clipped, his laughter absent. And it hurt in a way I couldn't explain. I told myself I should do the same, pretend, ignore, bury it. But the problem was, every time I looked at him, the memory of his hands, his voice, his nearness, returned like a tidal wave. And it wasn't something I could just forget. That night had changed everything. And the silence that followed was tearing me apart. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. We were sitting by the fireplace after dinner, the crackle of flames filling the silence. He was reading, or at least pretending to, but I couldn't keep it in any longer. "Liam," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He looked up, his eyes cautious. "Yeah?" I swallowed hard, every word fighting to stay trapped, but I forced them out anyway. "Last night, 2 nights ago, whatever that was, it wasn't nothing. Not for me. And I don't believe it was nothing for you either." His eyes widened, his book slipping slightly from his hands. You don't understand." "Then explain it to me," I pressed, leaning forward. "Because I can't keep pretending like it didn't happen. I don't want to." He set the book down slowly, his hands trembling. His gaze met mine, and for the first time since that night, I saw the truth there, undeniable, raw, unguarded. "I felt it too," he whispered. "I just don't know what to do with it." And there it was. The confession. The crack in the wall he'd been trying to build. But it wasn't a resolution. It was just the beginning of a much bigger storm. The firelight flickered against Liam's face, painting his features in gold and shadow. His confession still hung in the air between us, fragile and dangerous. I felt it too. I just don't know what to do with it. I sat frozen, my heart pounding. I had wanted him to admit it, to stop pretending, but hearing the words out loud, it was overwhelming. "Then stop pretending it's not there," I said quietly, the words trembling with urgency. His gaze darted away, toward the fire. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because," he trailed off, running a hand through his hair. "Because once we go there, we can't go back. Everything changes. And maybe not for the better." I leaned forward, desperation tightening my chest. "Everything already changed, Liam. The second your hands touched me, the second you asked if I wanted it, that was it. There's no going back." His eyes flicked back to mine, wide, vulnerable, full of something I couldn't name. "You think I don't want more? You think I haven't thought about it every second since that night? But wanting doesn't make it safe. It doesn't make it right." The words stung. "Safe? Right? Since when have you ever lived by rules that made you miserable?" "Since always," he said sharply, then softened. "You don't know what it's like, carrying this. What it would mean if anyone found out. What it would mean for me. For us." I wanted to argue, to tell him that none of it mattered, but the pain in his voice cut through me. He wasn't just scared for himself, he was scared for both of us. Still, I couldn't let it go. So what are we supposed to do? Pretend? Keep living in this half-life, knowing what's right in front of us but refusing to touch it? His silence was answer enough. I stood abruptly, the crack of the wooden floor beneath my feet loud in the quiet cabin. "I can't do this," I said, pacing. "I can't sit here every night, pretending I don't feel like I'm going to explode every time you look at me. Pretending your hands didn't set me on fire." "Stop," he whispered, pained. But I couldn't. The words were spilling out like a dam breaking. "Do you even understand what you did to me? One touch, Liam. One moment, and now I can't sleep, can't think, can't breathe without wanting." "Enough," he snapped, standing too, his eyes blazing now. We stood facing each other, firelight flickering between us like the very thing we couldn't name, desire, wild and consuming. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, his shoulders slumped. His voice was softer when he spoke again, almost breaking. "You think I don't feel the same? You think I'm not just as ruined as you are?" The silence that followed was deafening. I swallowed hard. "Then what are we waiting for?" His jaw tightened. He stepped closer, so close the heat of him pressed against me, though he didn't touch. His breath was ragged. "We're waiting, because if I touch you again, I won't stop. And I don't know what that means for us." My chest heaved, every muscle in my body aching to close the gap. "Then maybe it means we finally stop lying to ourselves." We were inches apart now. I could see the pulse hammering in his throat, the flicker of indecision in his eyes. For a heartbeat, I thought he would give in. But then, like a shutter slamming down, his expression hardened. He stepped back, running both hands over his face. "I can't," he said, voice ragged. "Not like this. Not when I'm this." He cut himself off. I felt the rejection like a punch to the chest. "Fine," I muttered, turning away. But the anger that burned in me wasn't just at him, it was at myself, too. At the cruel truth that desire wasn't enough to erase fear. The days that followed were unbearable. We barely spoke. When we did, it was clipped, functional, like we were strangers forced to share a space. But the silence between us wasn't empty, it was suffocating, filled with everything we weren't saying. Every time our eyes met, the memory of firelight and whispered confessions roared back. Every accidental brush of skin set me alight, even when he pulled away like he'd been burned. At night, I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of his breathing in the other bed. Sometimes it was quick and shallow, like mine, proof he wasn't sleeping either. And in those moments, I wanted to scream. To demand he admit that whatever this was, it wasn't going away. But I stayed silent. Because even in my frustration, I understood, he wasn't just battling me. He was battling himself. One evening, after a long day of chopping wood and pretending we weren't falling apart, a storm rolled in. The rain hammered the roof, the wind rattled the cabin walls. The fireplace crackled weakly, struggling against the cold seeping in. We sat in silence, both staring at the flames. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely audible over the storm. "I'm scared," he admitted. I turned, startled. His eyes were fixed on the fire, not me. "Scared of what?" I asked gently. "Of wanting you this much," he said, the words trembling. "Of what it says about me. Of what it means if I stop pretending." My throat tightened. "Liam," I whispered. "It just means you're human. And so am I." He finally looked at me, his eyes shining with something raw, something I'd never seen in him before. "You make it sound so simple." "Because it is," I said. "What we feel, it doesn't have to be wrong. It doesn't have to be something we bury until it kills us." For a moment, he didn't respond. Then, slowly, he leaned back, eyes closing. His lips parted like he wanted to say something, but no sound came. Instead, the storm answered for him, a thunderclap shaking the cabin. And just like that, the moment was gone. That night, I turned away in bed, tears stinging my eyes. We were both drowning in the same storm, but he kept building walls instead of reaching for me. And I didn't know how much longer I could wait. The storm outside didn't let up for 2 days. The rain came in sheets, hammering the roof until it sounded like the sky itself was splitting open. Wind clawed at the windows, and the forest beyond the cabin blurred into a constant gray. Inside, the walls felt smaller, the air heavier. There was no escape from each other. No chores to keep us busy, no long walks to clear our heads. Just the two of us, trapped with nothing but silence and the storm. By the second evening, I was unraveling. Liam sat at the table, fiddling with an old deck of cards, flipping them one by one onto the wood. His jaw was tight, his shoulders tense. I watched him from the couch, my chest burning. We hadn't spoken about that night again. We hadn't spoken about anything, really. Just clipped exchanges about meals or firewood. But the silence was worse than words. It was full of everything we were avoiding. I couldn't take it anymore. "Liam," I said suddenly, my voice sharp enough to cut through the rain. He looked up, startled, eyes wide. "Yeah?" I swallowed, my hands curling into fists on my knees. "We can't keep doing this." He frowned. "Doing what?" "This," I snapped, gesturing between us. "Pretending. Avoiding. Acting like we didn't, like nothing happened." His gaze dropped to the cards. "Maybe that's what's best." The words hit like a slap. My chest tightened, but anger rose to cover the ache. "Best for who?" "Because it sure as hell doesn't feel like it's best for me." He flinched, the cards trembling in his hands. "Do you think I haven't been going insane these last few days?" I pressed, my voice breaking. "Every second, I feel like I'm being torn apart, Liam. I can't eat, can't sleep, can't breathe without thinking about you. About us. And you sit there and act like burying it is the answer?" His head snapped up, eyes blazing now. "What do you want me to say? That I feel the same? That I can't stop thinking about your voice in the dark, or the way your skin felt under my hands? That I wake up every morning wishing I had the courage to cross that space between us?" The words exploded from him, raw and desperate. My breath caught. "Because it's true," he went on, standing now, pacing like a man possessed. "It's all true. And it terrifies me. Do you get that? It terrifies me more than anything in my life." I rose slowly, my heart pounding. "Why?" He turned on me, eyes wild. "Because if I let myself have this, have you, I don't know if I'll ever come back. I don't know if I'll ever be able to stop. And I don't know what that means for me. For everything I thought I was." His chest was heaving, his face twisted with fear and longing all at once. And suddenly, the truth was clear, this wasn't just about desire. It was about identity. About a lifetime of rules and expectations that told him what he was allowed to feel, and what he wasn't. I stepped closer, my voice softer now. "You don't have to come back. You don't have to stop. You just have to stop running from yourself." He shook his head violently, retreating a step. "You don't understand." I do, I cut in, my voice fierce. Because I've been there too. Hiding. Pretending. Convincing myself it was safer to lie than to admit what I wanted. But Liam, it's killing you. I see it every time you look at me. He froze, trembling. The storm outside roared louder, as if echoing the chaos in the room. I reached for him slowly, my hand brushing his arm. He didn't pull away, but he didn't lean in either. He just stood there, rigid, torn between surrender and fear. Tell me to stop, I whispered. He didn't. His eyes burned into mine, his lips parted, his breath quick and shallow. Tell me, I repeated, softer now, my thumb brushing lightly over his sleeve. But the words never came. Instead, he surged forward, grabbing me by the shirt and pulling me against him. Our foreheads collided, breaths mingling in the heated air. Damn you, he whispered, voice breaking. Damn you for making me want this so badly. And then his lips crashed into mine. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was fire and hunger and years of denial erupting all at once. I gasped against him, my hands finding his face, pulling him closer. His fingers dug into my back, desperate, as if he was afraid I'd vanish if he let go. The storm outside raged, thunder shaking the walls, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside us. Every kiss, every touch, was a battle between fear and need, between restraint and surrender. When we finally broke apart, gasping, he pressed his forehead to mine again. What are we doing? He whispered, his voice raw. We're finally being honest, I breathed. He closed his eyes, shaking his head, but he didn't move away. His hand stayed on me, his chest pressed against mine, his whole body trembling with the force of what we had unleashed. For the first time, the silence between us wasn't suffocating. It was electric. Alive. And terrifying. Because even as I held him, even as his lips returned to mine with trembling urgency, I knew the storm wasn't over. This was only the beginning of a battle neither of us was ready to fight. But in that moment, with the rain pounding the roof and his heart pounding against my chest, I didn't care. For once, I wasn't scared. For once, I let myself believe in us. The storm carried on through the night, but inside the cabin, a different storm was unfolding. Liam's mouth was still on mine, frantic and desperate, his hands gripping me like I was the only thing keeping him from drowning. Every kiss was a confession, every touch a plea. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, didn't want to. For so long, I had imagined what this might feel like, but the reality was so much more, messy, urgent, overwhelming. When his lips finally broke from mine, we were both gasping, our foreheads pressed together, sweat mixing with the dampness of the storm air. This is wrong, he whispered, though his hands didn't let go. I shook my head, my fingers curling into his shirt. No, Liam. This is the only thing that's ever felt right. He let out a strangled laugh, half sob, half surrender. His body trembled against mine, and I realized then just how much he had been holding back. Years of denial. Years of loneliness. Years of burying himself beneath rules that never once considered what his heart wanted. I don't know how to do this, he admitted, his voice small, breaking. You don't have to know, I said gently. You just have to let yourself feel. Something in him cracked then, visibly. His chest heaved, his eyes shone, and he leaned back in, not with the hunger of before, but with a tender, aching slowness. His lips brushed mine like a prayer, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he pressed too hard. It was enough to undo me completely. I guided him backward until his legs hit the edge of the couch, and he sank down, pulling me with him. My knees straddled his thighs, and his hands hesitated at my waist before gripping tight, as though finally claiming the space he'd denied himself. The kiss deepened again, heat flaring, our breaths sharp and uneven. Every second felt like the world shrinking until there was nothing but him, his mouth, his touch, his shuddering breaths. God, he murmured against my lips, I've wanted this. I didn't even know how badly until now. You don't have to hold back anymore, I told him, my voice low, steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. His eyes searched mine, wide and vulnerable. What if this changes everything? It already has, I whispered. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The storm outside hammered at the windows, thunder shaking the cabin walls. Inside, it was quiet but for our breathing, the pounding of our hearts. Then he leaned up, closing the gap again, and this time there was no hesitation. His lips pressed hard against mine, urgent and demanding. His hand slid up my back, clutching at me like he couldn't get close enough. I felt his body tense beneath mine, every line of him straining with need and fear and release. I kissed him back with everything I had, pouring years of longing and unspoken words into it. My hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, anchoring him. When we finally broke apart, panting, his voice was wrecked, hoarse. I don't know who I am anymore. I cupped his face, forcing him to look at me. You're Liam. You're the man who makes me feel alive. That's all you need to be. Tears glimmered in his eyes, though they didn't fall. He leaned into my touch, pressing his cheek against my palm like it was the only safe place left in the world. And then, for the first time, he smiled. It was small, shaky, but real. That smile was everything. The hours that followed blurred into something both fragile and fierce. We held on to each other, kissed until our lips were raw, spoke in whispers that carried more truth than anything we had ever dared say before. Liam confessed pieces of himself in fragments, his fear of being cast out, his confusion over what it meant to want this, to want me. I told him my own truths, about the loneliness, the pretending, the years wasted in silence. Every word stripped us bare, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to hide. By the time the storm outside began to quiet, we were still tangled together, not as strangers trapped by circumstance, but as something new. Something dangerous. Something undeniable. And yet, even in that fragile peace, I knew the storm inside us wasn't over. Because outside the cabin walls, the world still waited. And the world was not kind to boys like us. But in that moment, his body pressed against mine, his breath warm on my neck, his heartbeat echoing against my chest, I let myself believe. For once, we weren't hiding. For once, we were free. The morning light seeped through the cabin curtains, pale and gray, still heavy with the storm's aftermath. I woke with Liam's arm draped across my chest, his body curved against mine like he had never meant to let go. For a moment, I just lay there, breathing him in, afraid to move, afraid it might all vanish like a dream. But reality never waits. He stirred not long after, his lashes fluttering, his eyes blinking open. For a brief, unguarded second, he looked at me with such softness that I almost believed this could last. Then the weight of who he was, where he came from, shadowed his gaze, and the smile faded from his lips. "Morning," I whispered, tracing a gentle line down his arm. "Morning," he echoed, voice hoarse. But his arm slipped away, and he sat up, running a hand through his tousled hair. The silence stretched between us, thick with everything we'd said in the night and everything we hadn't. Finally, he spoke, voice low, broken. We can't pretend this changes who I am. Or who I'm supposed to be." My chest tightened. "You don't have to pretend anymore, Liam. Last night, you can't tell me that wasn't real." He turned, eyes sharp with a mix of fear and longing. "Of course it was real. That's the problem. It was too real." His words hung heavy in the room. I wanted to grab him, shake him, beg him not to retreat into the world that would tear us apart. But I also knew the kind of fear that ran in his blood, fear of rejection, of exile, of being cast out of everything he'd ever known. "Do you regret it?" I asked finally, my throat tight. He looked at me then, eyes wet, jaw trembling. "No. God help me, no. But I don't know how to live with it." We sat there, two men caught between a night that had changed everything and a morning that threatened to erase it. Before either of us could say more, the sound of a truck engine rumbled in the distance. Liam froze. "They're here," he whispered, panic flashing across his face. I moved to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to see. Sure enough, a plain buggy had pulled up near the edge of the woods, and two men in dark coats stepped out. They weren't from town, I could tell instantly. Amish men. His people. My pulse spiked. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" Liam's face had gone pale, all the warmth of last night drained away. He nodded slowly, his hands clenching into fists. "I told you," he said bitterly, voice shaking. "My world doesn't let me choose this. They'll drag me back. They'll make sure this never happens again." "Like hell they will," I shot back, anger rising in me. "You don't belong to them, Liam. You belong to yourself." He looked at me, tortured, torn between fight and surrender. "You don't understand. If they know, if they even suspect, I'll lose everything. My family, my home, my place in the community. I'll be nothing." I stepped closer, grabbing his shoulders. "You won't be nothing. You'll be free. You'll have me." For a moment, his eyes softened, his lips parting as if to believe me. But the sound of a knock on the cabin door shattered it. "Liam," a deep voice called. "We know you're in there. It's time to come home." Liam flinched like the words were a whip across his skin. I held his gaze, fierce. "Don't go." Tears brimmed in his eyes. "If I don't, they'll never stop. They'll hound us both. And if they find out about this," he gestured helplessly between us. "It won't just be me they destroy." The knock came again, harder this time. He pressed his forehead to mine, trembling. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "Yes, you are," I whispered. "Last night proved it." He let out a strangled sob and kissed me, desperate, as if it was the last time. My hands clung to him, refusing to let go, but then he tore himself away, stumbling toward the door. "Liam!" I hissed, reaching for him. He turned back, eyes wild with fear and love all tangled together. "Whatever happens, remember last night. Remember it was real." And before I could stop him, he pulled open the door. The men outside seized him instantly, their hands gripping his arms like iron. He didn't resist, not fully, but his eyes locked on mine, pleading silently, as if begging me to hold on to what we had even if he couldn't. "Wait!" I shouted, stepping forward. "You can't just." One of the men shot me a look, cold and final. "This is not your concern." Liam's lips moved, but no sound came. He was dragged down the steps, his figure swallowed by the storm-gray morning. And just like that, the cabin was empty. I stood frozen, heart hammering, the echo of his touch still burning on my skin. Rage, grief, helplessness all surged through me. The storm outside had passed, but inside me, it raged harder than ever. Because last night, Liam had given me his truth. And I wasn't about to let the world take him back without a fight. The cabin felt unbearably quiet after they took him. The rain had stopped, but the silence pressed in heavier than the storm ever had. Every corner of the room carried his ghost, his laugh, his trembling touch, the weight of his head against my chest. I sat on the couch where we'd shared everything, my hands still trembling as if they hadn't realized he was gone. Part of me wanted to collapse into despair, to let the memory of last night fade into nothing but a dream. But Liam's last words wouldn't leave me. "Remember last night. Remember it was real." Real. That single word became my anchor. I knew what we had wasn't a mistake, wasn't sin or shame, it was truth. And truth doesn't vanish just because men in black coats say it should. Liam had tasted freedom in my arms, and I'd felt his soul unchained, even if only for a night. Maybe they had taken him back to his world of silence and rules. Maybe he would vanish behind their walls again. But I refused to believe this was the end. Because once you've touched something that pure, something that alive, you don't let it go. I stood, heart pounding with a clarity I hadn't known before. If they thought they could keep him caged forever, they were wrong. This wasn't the end of our story. It was only the beginning. If this story stirred something inside you, don't stop here. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and share your thoughts. Every voice matters. These true gay stories deserve to be told, and your support makes it possible to bring them to life. Whether you've lived something similar or just believe in love without boundaries, let's build this community together. Tap the bell for updates, you won't want to miss what's coming next.